Most people look at the world and see random events, accidents, and coincidences. But a spiritually aware person sees something else entirely. They notice the invisible threads pulling everything together. They sense when a moment isn't just a moment, but a message. When an encounter isn't by chance, but a mirror. When a struggle isn't punishment, but instruction. They're not special. They're not chosen. They're simply awake. And awakening changes everything. People think awakening is about light, bliss, or feeling above others. But that's the very first illusion that dissolves. Real awakening begins in a far stranger place. Your perception changes before your beliefs do. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The spiritually aware understand this deeply. They stop blaming bad luck or destiny. They start noticing the patterns inside themselves that keep repeating in the world around them. They understand something most people don't even consider. The outer world behaves like a reflection of the inner one. When you're spiritually aware, you stop thinking in straight lines. Your mind begins to move in patterns, loops, symbols, the very language of the unconscious. Ancient mystics in the Hermetic tradition said, "As within, so without." Modern psychology calls it projection. Physics calls it feedback loops. But someone who is awake, they don't need the terminology. They see it happening everywhere. You feel fear, the world mirrors threats. You feel unworthy, the world offers rejection. You feel aligned, doors open without you forcing them. Most people think life happens to them. The spiritually aware see that life reacts to them. They understand another strange truth. Intuition isn't magic. It's memory. Not personal memory, but the memory of the species. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoics, wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But modern neuroscience shows something even more interesting. Your brain is constantly predicting the future based on patterns it has seen before, even if you don't consciously recognize them. So when the spiritually aware feel something isn't right or I shouldn't go there, they trust it because they understand that intuition is not emotion, it's intelligence without language. Most people miss this. They confuse intuition with anxiety and desire with destiny. The spiritually aware learn to separate the two. Another thing they understand, and most people resist, the ego never stops speaking. Silence isn't natural for it. The ego is noisy, dramatic, endlessly hungry. It creates arguments, fantasies, fears, not because it's evil, but because its only job is survival. The spiritually aware don't fight the ego. They simply stop taking it seriously. As the occultist Gurdjieff said, "You are asleep. Your life is a dream." He didn't mean that literally. He meant that most people live inside the ego's hallucination of who they think they are. But awakening is realizing you are not the voice in your mind. You are the one who is listening to it. Spiritually aware people also understand this paradox. Most suffering is self-created, not because we deserve it, but because we cling to old versions of ourselves that no longer fit. Carl Rogers, one of psychology's greatest thinkers, said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." This truth is ancient. It appears in Buddhism, Stoicism, and even in alchemical texts. You cannot transform what you refuse to look at. You cannot heal what you keep pretending isn't there. You cannot rise while dragging the weight of an identity you outgrew years ago. Spiritually aware people understand that growth begins in honesty, brutal, uncomfortable honesty. Not the kind you confess to others, but the kind you admit only to yourself. Another truth they carry silently. Every person you meet is teaching you something. Some teach love, some teach patience, some teach boundaries, some teach resilience, some teach you how not to live. When a spiritually aware person is hurt, they don't only ask, "Why did this happen?" They ask, "What is this showing me about myself?" Not in a self-blaming way, but in a self-understanding way. And because of this, they grow faster than the average person. Pain becomes instruction. Confusion becomes initiation. Chaos becomes doorway. There is another thing spiritually aware people understand, but rarely say out loud, because others might misunderstand it. They know that most of what people call truth is just habit, beliefs inherited without questioning, opinions absorbed without reflection, rules accepted without examination. Alan Watts used to say, "The menu is not the meal," meaning the explanation of life is not life itself. Spiritually aware people don't worship explanations. They value experience, presence, awareness, stillness, direct perception. They understand that the mind can describe reality, but cannot replace it. Finally, the spiritually aware understand the rarest truth of all. Everything is connected, and nothing stands alone. Not symbolically, not poetically, literally. A choice made in fear creates fear in others. A choice made in clarity brings clarity to others. A single act of kindness reshapes the emotional geometry of a room. A single act of self-betrayal distorts the world around you. Thoughts ripple outward. Intentions shift probability. Awareness changes what it touches. This isn't mysticism. It's psychology, physics, and profound human experience overlapping in ways we're only beginning to understand. Spiritually aware people don't claim to know everything. They simply live with their eyes open. And once your eyes open, it's impossible to return to sleep. Not because you become superior, not because you become enlightened, but because once you've seen the deeper structure of reality, you can't unsee it, and you no longer want to. You simply continue the work, learning, unlearning, seeing, and becoming. But the spiritually aware understands something even more unsettling and strangely comforting at the same time. Awakening is not a destination. It is a cycle. You wake up, you fall asleep again. You understand, then forget. You break an illusion, only to find another hiding behind it. Awareness is not a straight path upward. It spirals like a galaxy, returning to the same places, but from higher ground each time. This is why awakened people rarely judge others for being asleep. They remember how many times they were asleep. They know how many illusions they used to cling to, and how many illusions they still haven't discovered yet. In the words of the occult philosopher Manly P. Hall, the path of wisdom must forever be rebuilt. Each insight you gain must be tested, lived, challenged, destroyed, and rebuilt again. Awakening isn't fragile. It is forged. Spiritually aware people also understand something profoundly important about the world. Most people do not seek truth. They seek comfort. Truth is sharp, Truth is demanding. Truth asks you to let go of identities that have protected you for years. Comfort lets you keep them. Comfort tells you stories that make reality softer, simpler, less threatening. The spiritually aware person chooses truth even when it hurts, because they know that comfort is temporary, but truth transforms. This is why, if you speak honestly around someone who is still trapped in illusion, they will often react with anger, confusion, or defensiveness. Not because they are bad, but because you are touching the edges of a belief that holds their world together. Awakening is not about who is right. It's about who is willing to let the truth rearrange them. Another thing spiritually aware people understand is this: attention is the most sacred currency of human life. Where you place your attention shapes your emotions, your beliefs, your identity, your reality. Most people spend their attention without knowing they're spending it on distractions, noise, conflict, comparison, mindless scrolling. Their inner world becomes fragmented because their attention is fragmented. Spiritually aware people realize something powerful. Attention flows where energy grows. Give fear your attention, fear multiplies. Give gratitude your attention, gratitude expands. Give meaning your attention, life becomes meaningful. This isn't magic, it's psychology, biology, and consciousness intertwined. The Buddhists call it mindfulness. Psychologists call it selective focus. Neuroscientists call it neural sculpting. But the spiritually aware, they simply call it living with your eyes open. They also understand a hidden rule of reality. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. This is why affirmations alone don't work. You can't lie to the universe about your state of being. If you feel unworthy inside, but speak words of abundance outside, the energy doesn't match. The signal is contradictory. Spiritually aware people understand that the universe responds not to language, but to alignment. To change your life, you must first change your state. Then your actions follow. Then your reality rearranges itself organically. This is why spiritual awakening always begins within, because the outside world cannot shift until the inside one does.